now that we've started recording, I was going through the schedule and I reminded everybody that the deadline for response paper 3 has now been pushed back to the 29th of October. So it's not due at the end of this week. And then next week, I kind of encouraged everybody to try to log in because I will go over, during our Zoom session, I will go over digital humanities grants, how you can apply for some grant funding to, keep working on your project. And this can be helpful in many different fields, like people in government agencies, people working for libraries, people working for publishing houses can apply for grants. Even individual scholars who are not affiliated to an institution, maybe they're just working on a passion project, can apply for certain grants. And there are private grants available, and then there are grants available through the National Endowment for the Humanities. So there are lots and lots of grants available, and we'll talk about how to write grant proposals, and I will introduce the Digital Humanities grant proposal assignment. So I encourage you to try to log in next Tuesday. I also very quickly mentioned that a good friend of mine from Tarleton State University, Dr. Momin Kazi, he has been a part of the creative writing scene, well, in Texas, but also San Antonio, TACWIT for a really, really long time. He has started multiple journals and magazines. He's been running this magazine for nearly 23 years. He's got a lot of experience. He's going to do one workshop on editing and publishing and another workshop on creative writing. If you're interested, please do. You should have received an email with that information. Please do register so that I know who will be attending. And then from 3:30 to 4:30, he'll do a reading of his creative work. Again, he's a good person to get to know and add to your professional network. And then I wanted to very quickly talk about the following week when we will have the Digital Humanities Project Review presentations, and then the Digital Humanities Project Review paper will be due on the 5th of November, that's Sunday. So going back to the Digital Humanities, the Digital Project Review assignment, now I went over the assignment requirements and how to write the Digital Project Review. So you can go back to that recording. But in terms of the presentation, it's not going to be a formal presentation. It's going to be pretty informal. You can create PowerPoint slides to kind of help you through your presentation to remember all the things that you want to say. And you have, let's say, between 5 to 10 minutes, but keep it short. 5 minutes is good. All you're going to do is by that time, which is the 31st of October, that Tuesday, you will have identified your, I hope that by that time, you will have identified your digital project, the one that you're reviewing, and you will have created at least you'll have a sense of the overview that you write in about 500 words. And then you will have already started evaluating the project. So taking 5 minutes, I want you to simply pull up the project and talk about its purpose, its scope, whether it does its job well, is it accessible? You can make a note of the different languages it uses, what kind of, scholarship it embeds into the project, like where are the source materials coming from, and then what technology it uses, right? So essentially, you'll give an overview of the review that you're writing, your evaluation of the project. And you can use PowerPoint slides. You can just simply pull up the project, and it's relatively informal. But that's the plan for that week. Okay, and then the actual paper will be due that Sunday by 11:59 p.m. And then Sarita had a question. So yeah, Sarita.
Oh, Yeah, that was actually going back to like scheduling, sort of just like looking at upcoming events. As
Hmm,
far as like that creative workshop or the creative writing and publishing workshop,
hmm.
you mentioned like an RSVP to get like a head count. I got the email about it that had like a QR code. Would that be like the same thing, or is there another like external link? Okay, just making sure there wasn't like another link that I needed to fill out.
No, no. If you scan the QR code, then it'll take you to a form, and then in the
Okay.
form, you just need to provide your name, your email address, and then select the workshop that you want to attend, and you can
Okay, just making sure there wasn't like another thing that, like a send off specifically to you. Okay.
no. And again, the only reason why uh, I'm asking you to register is we're going to do it in the blue room. Um, I mean, it if we have 15 people, that's a good number of people. But sometimes, I mean, we have many more students on campus this semester. People seem to be a little more engaged. If we by chance happen to have 40 people, we just need to get some more chairs into the room. Carla, I know what you're going to ask, which is it going to be offered on Zoom? Um, Let me talk to academic technology and we'll figure it out.
So
Okay.
I was gonna say, like, if not, I can make sure I'm there on campus. I because I'm starting to to go on campus, so
No,
I
but
can.
I don't want you to feel like, you're going to miss out until unless you're on campus, because I completely understand. And I want to make sure that I create that opportunity for you. So see if you can be on campus, but in the meanwhile, I'll go and talk to academic technology and see if the issue with Zoom is, the sharing of the screen isn't a problem. So during a presentation, but during a workshop, the Dr. Kazi might be moving around, and we don't yet have that kind of camera technology to move around with him. So I think the experience might be very different. Um, and again, keep in mind, this is not a requirement, right? This is not a part of the class. This is just if you're interested. But if
No,
you're
I am interested.
yes, so if you're interested, see, just let me know. Okay, let me know. Who know? I mean, by that time you probably will have your office already, right, on campus. So yeah, it's just that even if I can set it up and I want to talk to academic technology and see what's the best way to set this up. But like I said, a workshop on Zoom, particularly this kind of workshop, will have a completely different feel, because he's probably going to move around a lot and talk, and the camera is usually only on the computer screen, so you probably won't be able to see him because the podium, yeah. So because of those issues. Um. Anyway, so
I have another question about the
yes,
project. So sorry, I
no,
just
no,
full of
no.
questions today. So I don't know how I missed that we had to do a digital project review. Like I must have missed class that day or something. I thought I attended all the classes, but is that pulled from the ones that we looked at, the links that you gave us, those digital projects? Do we just get any one of those?
No, you pick. So the digital. No, not the ones that I've shared. You can pick any digital project you want,
Oh,
right?
like anywhere, like
Anywhere. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But to look at the models, if you go to the assignment description, and I would highly recommend looking up the recording of the Zoom session when I introduce the assignment. But if you go to the assignment description, you scroll down, I have also linked at least a couple of reviews from reviews in digital humanities, right? And so you'll get this one is in Spanish, but also in English. So uh, after the Spanish, you have the English translation, the review in English. But so you'll see it's not particularly long. You have the project review in 500 words, and then you'll have the project overview in 500 words, and then the project review. And it sort of follows this structure, which is it kind of addresses, it provides a brief summary, and then it does an assessment. And actually, following this structure, because the assignment description was adapted from the guidelines for reviewers provided by Reviews in Digital Humanities. So what happened was last semester, I'm friends with, let me just put it, you can still see my screen, right? I'm still sharing my screen.
Yeah.
So I'm friends with the editors of this journal. And I told them that last semester I was using their guidelines to have students work on digital project reviews. So they were very interested, and the managing editor contacted me and said, would you and a student like to do a review for us? And at that time, because it was summer, I happened to be in touch with Henry, who's a graduate student in the program, and we actually got published. And so when Henry and I, because I was showing Henry how to go about writing the review. So what we did was we read a lot of those reviews, and we saw that the way it is structured, and if you read a few, you'll notice that usually the first paragraph kind of does a summary. The second paragraph kind of talks about what kind of technology was used, what kind of format, digital format, or platform. Then there's sort of a description of the project. Then there's a kind of evaluation of what the project contributes, right? Where does its source materials come from? And then there is an evaluation of the significance, as well as any critical suggestions, right? So you don't want a negative review, but what you can do is you can say the project can be improved. So we actually had a discussion, and we agreed that there were certain things that could be improved. And so instead of just going, this project doesn't do this right, you'll notice that we said the project would also benefit from greater clarification of its collaborative mission. So the focus is how can the project be improved, right? So anyway, so again, my recommendation is read a few of those project reviews, and you very quickly you'll get a sense of the structure. And then Carla, well, you've been interested in service animals.
Yes.
So you could even do a digital project on service animal search. So
I didn't. There was only two digital humanities ones. But they weren't the projects weren't about service animals. They were about how animals and humans started interacting. That was one, and then the other one, how they started working together.
Well, so the ADA National Network, which has the Service Animal Resource Hub.
Oh wow.
Right. And so kind of like exploring the service dog project. Right. So any one of those would qualify.
Oh, good. Okay.
Right. Any one of those would qualify.
Is there something specific? Like
this one is canine companions, but this is not service animals. But again, somebody created this, and so you can it is a digital project, right? Now, so I know that in the syllabus I say digital humanities project review, but the assignment is digital project review. I mean, they are still linked to the humanities in the sense that they're looking at service animals, companion animals. But in the technical sense, and that was what the readings this week was kind of dealing with, which is what is digital humanities? It's not just digitization. It's not just here is a website for companion animals, but it's a way to use digital tools in the process of inquiry and analysis in the humanities, right? So, I mean, however, yeah, I mean, it's a website that has been created. It has a purpose. It would count. Okay. Any other question? Yes, Ifeanyi.
Yeah, okay. Do I understand that in trying to make a review of the digital project, you don't criticize, just review it as it is. You don't add anything. Just
No. You can be critical, but the focus of your, like how when food critics write or a film critic writes, they can trash a film, or a food critic can trash a restaurant. But that's not the goal here. The goal here is to evaluate the project and identify what the project tries to do and what it does well. And then, if there are things that you identify that aren't done well, or that could be done better, then you frame it in that way that, look, making these changes will make the project better, as opposed to saying the project doesn't work, to say, maybe making this more accessible, or given that the project is focused on people in South Texas, and quite a significant part of the South Texas population might be monolingual speakers of Spanish or more comfortable in Spanish, it would make sense for the project to be in both English and Spanish. So you provide your criticism in a constructive way. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. So any questions about the presentation or the digital project review assignment? Any other questions? Well, you might have questions later on, so feel free to email them to me or just get in touch with me. Now, even though as graduate students you're kind of expected to know this, but recognizing that our graduate students come from very different backgrounds. So Ifeanyi has a English literature background, and he already has a graduate degree in English literature. So Ifeanyi is familiar with the conventions of proper citation in this field, right? But we also have students who maybe from a business background or from a public service background, and they may not be familiar with academic citation styles. So I usually like to take a little bit of time every semester and go over citation methods. This might be information that you're already aware of, so just bear with me, okay? So for citation purposes, I always recommend go to Purdue OWL unless you own a copy of the MLA handbook. And then for my class, you have to follow the MLA citation style. But keep in mind that when we are getting published, we pretty much follow the citation policy of the journal. So the journal may have a house policy or may follow a particular citation style, and you just need to change your citations to fit that style. So Purdue OWL, OWL, stands for Online Writing Lab. And this online writing lab has been around for a long time. It was created for the benefit of students at Purdue University, but because it was so popular that it kind of, everybody started using it as a resource. And since then, they have really developed the website. They have added lots and lots of amazing information. And one of the things that they've done is, right, on their homepage, you can see they have a link to MLA Guide. So the Modern Language Association, every couple of years, brings out a fresh copy of its citation manual. And there may be changes, there may be updates, and or new information. And so for scholars in the field and members of MLA, you have to keep up with that. But for students, it can be difficult to keep buying the new handbook. So what Purdue OWL does is it takes the most basic information, this information that most people usually need, and updates their website. And so this is a good place to go to kind of get the basics of the MLA citation style. So you can either click on MLA Guide, or you can go to Purdue OWL and then go to Research, and then actually go to Purdue OWL Online Writing Lab, and then click on that, and then go to Research and Citation and go to MLA Style. Okay, and then besides information on how to create your works cited and your and cite in text, they also have information on formatting quotations. So MLA makes a distinction between short quotations and long quotations, and all that information. So you don't have to remember any of that information. This is what I tell everybody. Just know where to go to find that information. So as far as MLA is concerned, if you have 4 typed lines of prose or 3 typed lines of poetry, then that constitutes a short quotation. And then with short quotations, you also need to make sure to integrate your quotation into your sentence with a signal phrase or a lead-in, right? So to give you an example of what that would look like, I'm just opening up a Microsoft Word document. So let me zoom in here. So a signal phrase or a lead-in, the articles that you read for today, pulling up the productive unease of 21st century. So suppose I want to quote something from here. It is now easier. Okay, so I want to quote this. So properly integrating that into the sentence. What you don't want to do is to have a standalone quotation to say something like, scholars note that DH has evolved, and so has the process of digitization, right? And then if I simply add the quote, don't do this. Okay, I know that I'm showing you what not to do, but the reason why you shouldn't do this is because it's just hanging by itself. It is not integrated into your writing. So what you need to do here is you need to integrate. So you should go. So the author of that article is Julia Flanders. So Julia Flanders, or you can even just simply never refer to an author by just the first name. It's either first and last name or last name. So you can either write Julia Flanders or Flanders notes the evolution of the process of digitization, stating that. Do you see how this sentence now becomes a part of my sentence, but it flows grammatically, right? And then what I'll do is I'll end. Now I'll have to go and check if it's an article. Now these are paragraph numbers. And so since there are paragraph numbers, I'll provide the paragraph number. And so whatever that paragraph number was, maybe it was 6. So what I'll do is in parentheses, I'll provide 6 and then the period. But if there are no page numbers or paragraph numbers, then I'll put the period and then close out the quotation. Okay. So very important, need to integrate with this part is the signal phrase or lead in. Now, there are other possible signal phrases. So I can change this and say, scholars note the evolution of this. Some arguing that, right? So I'm saying more than one scholar. However, the quotation is from one particular scholar. Now, since I did not put Flanders' name in the signal phrase, I now need to, in parentheses, I'm just going to add the last name. Okay, in parenthetical citation, I'm just going to add the last name and then the paragraph number, if the paragraph number or the page number is available, then period. Okay. So this is the basic structure. You integrate. Also, this is very, very important. Never use a quotation as self-explanatory. If I say this, I need to now add a sentence addressing what it is that Flanders is saying. I need to clarify, or I need to connect what Flanders is saying to the argument that I'm making. Never just put a quotation in there as if people will read the quotation and figure it out themselves. You have to then follow up, either explaining the quote or connecting the quote to what you're saying, but basically clarifying the point. Okay, so make sure to do that. But if you go to the Purdue website, they have lots of examples of the different ways in which you can integrate quotations, right? So you have the name of the author in the signal phrase, or if you don't have the name of the author in the signal phrase. Now, MLA is actually kind of easy when it comes to the number of authors. So let's say this quotation was from Flanders and Perez. So then this would be Flanders and Perez. Or if I wanted to put it in the signal phrase with their names, I would say Flanders and Perez note. Right. So 2 authors, Flanders and Perez, with their last names. More than 2 authors, 3 authors, 4 authors, 5 authors, 25 authors, doesn't matter. Flanders and Perez and Hinojosa and Twain. If there are more than 3 authors, all you're going to do is you're going to write the name of the last name of the first author, and then you're going to write et al. Period, which means Flanders and the other authors. Okay, and going back, if you did not mention the names of the authors in the signal phrase, in the parenthetical citation, when you have 3 or more authors, again, put the last name of the first author, then put in et al. Period, and then if there's a paragraph number or a page number. This is very simple. Okay. Now, long quotations. Yes, Ifeanyi.
Okay, please. What of when Flanders has written so many books? How do you distinguish the one you're talking about? How do you distinguish the particular book you're referring to?
Okay, hold on to that question, and I'll get to that. Okay, that's a good question, but hang on to it for a second. Yes, Carla.
What if the journal is published in multiple, like if the paper is published in multiple journals, would it still be the same page number?
It's actually very unusual for a paper to be published in multiple journals, because when you publish a paper in one journal, before that paper can be published in another journal, they would have to request they have to request permission, like, because it's under copyright. And so usually the only articles that you find that are published in multiple journals are famous articles, which have been around for a while, and then they wanted to, because otherwise, think about it, journals want to publish new scholarship, so they're not going to republish the same article, right? And so that's very rare. But usually, just provide the page number of the source that you're using, and I'll explain why. But let's also take a look at the block quotation part. So if I were to actually now use a block quotation from that same article, and so let's say now I want to use multiple lines. Okay, perfect example. I don't have to actually show you, like, do a block quotation. You can see block quotations here. Now, the important part, let me zoom in a little bit to note is, do you see how even with a block quotation, she provides a signal phrase? She says, John Unsworth, in an article entitled What is Humanities Computing and What is Not, makes a point of noting the difference between using a computer for any of its many practical purposes and using the computer as a scholarly tool, colon. And then you have the quotation. And then with the quotation, because it's more than 4 lines. Now, here you might say, like, it doesn't look like it's more than 4 lines, but that's because when you're creating an HTML file, like a document, I can reduce the font size and it'll be less than 3 lines, right? But it's a significant quote. It's a long quote. So because it's a long quote, instead of putting it in double quotation marks, you block the entire quote. So you indent it. Okay, you indent the whole quotation, you remove the quotation marks, and then actually she's following a different citation style, and maybe she quotes more than one Unsworth, but she actually doesn't. So
that looks like APA. Isn't that APA quotation style?
It is APA. I think she's following. Actually, it may not be APA. It may also be Chicago style manual, or different presses have their own sort of house styles. So this press, or the book, like the open access book that they published online, they just decided to follow a style where they provide the year of publication. But the main point is this feels a little redundant because she names the author in the signal phrase.
Yes.
Right. And so the Unsworth is redundant. Okay. But, we won't hold it against her, but you can sort of see what a block quotation looks like. Right. And again, important point, you've got to provide the signal phrase, even with a block quotation. So more than 4 type lines, you make it into a block quote. Okay. So that's the basic in-text quotations. Now, when you are looking at you're creating the works cited page. So at the end of your citation, all these in-text citations, all they're doing is they're telling the reader that the full bibliographic information is under works cited. So when you create the works cited page, you basically write works cited, then Flanders. Now, when you're writing the whole bibliographic information, you have the source. What you're going to do is you're going to then look for the type of source that you're citing. If it's a book, if it's a periodical, if it is an electronic source. So most of the time, because nowadays we do our searches through the library databases or online on the internet, most of your sources are going to be electronic. So go to electronic sources, and then as you scroll down, citing an entire website, a page on a website, an ebook, an image, an article in a web magazine, an article in an online scholarly journal, an article from an online database. So most of the articles that you're going to find are going to be from online databases. For example, if we go to Jernigan Library and do a search on the process of adopting a service. And so, you have ebooks and digital books, but then we also want to look for academic journal articles. So I'm going to use source types, check academic journals. Okay. Can interacting with animals improve executive functions? Let's just say this is an article that you're using for your research. If you click on that title, you'll see that you have the names of the authors, you have the source where it was published, volume number, issue number, all of this, the page numbers, how many pages. You actually don't have to write out everything. At the top, here at the top, you'll notice that there is a cite icon. If you click on that, it allows you to choose the citation style. Choose MLA 9th edition, copy, take it back to your Word document, paste. Okay. And then what you should do is you should go to the way you're supposed to cite. So see, last name of the author, comma, first name. In the case of two authors, last name, here, last name, comma, first name, comma, and with the second author, first name, last name, right? Period, name of the article, not italicized, but in double quotation marks. Remember, the period at the end of the article title comes before the end quotations. Then the name of the journal is italicized, comma, volume number, issue number, date of publication, page numbers, the database, and either the DOI number or the URL. This is the organization. All I'm going to do is I'm going to go to this thing that I copied. It had like 4 authors. So last name of first author, comma, first name, comma, et al. Good. Can interacting, this is the name of the article, not italicized, in double quotations. Perfect. Name of the journal, italicized. Volume number, issue number, date of publication. This is not correct because it's only giving me one page. But then you have the database and then you have the URL. So the only thing I will check is I'll go to the article. And remember, you'll be downloading the article because you're using this as a source. Two zero eight zero 4 of 21. Okay, so the page numbers are a little wonky. 20 of 21, 21 pages. Actually, I can even generate a citation from the journal itself. So download emails into Microsoft. Height. Ooh, here it is. Site. MLA 9th edition. See the page number. It's not providing the page number. It's basically saying that because it's in an electronic source, the page number is not relevant. It's not useful. So I can go back and just simply remove the page number. Okay, so I just double check. Again, if Yanni had that question, what if you have two sources from the same author? So if you go to MLA Works Cited Basics, more than one work by an author. If you have cited more than one work by a particular author, order the entries alphabetically by title and use 3 hyphens in place of the author's name for every entry. Actually, this would be not work cited. This would be in-text citations, the basics. Citing multiple works by the same author. Citing 2 articles by the same author. If you cite more than one work by an author, include a shortened title for the particular work from which you are quoting to distinguish it from the others. You see how Leitner, and so in the first citation is this article, and then the second one is, so you just have a shortened title, right? And then if you don't have Leitner's name in the signal phrase, you would just put in Leitner too soon 38 and Leitner hand-eye development 17. Okay, see, Elkins, comma, visual studies 63. If Yanni, does that answer your question?
Yes, it does.
Right, and so again, if you have a citation, a particular text or an article which is giving you trouble, go to Purdue OWL and look for the specific source, that kind of source, or otherwise just ask me. Okay. Somebody put something in the chat. Oh yeah, don't worry about it, Sarita. Again, I mean, now that I've gone through this, I'll expect the citations to be correct, but you know, and the revisiting citation styles is useful for all of us. which is really why I went through this. But any questions about citing sources? Yes, Carla.
So I've always been confused on the the citation page is an actual page, like it has to be by itself, or can it be a continuum?
It's not a big deal simply because if you're following MLA citation style, then MLA has all of these rules for how to format your paper. Now, we don't usually follow all of those rules. What we do is we follow the citation style. And so as long as you have the works cited at the end of your paper, it's okay. Whether you put it on a separate page or the same page, it doesn't matter, right? And see, previously it may have mattered when you printed it out, because nowadays you will simply submit it electronically. So, so it doesn't matter. Yeah, and I can't think of, I'm trying to think if there was anything else regarding citation styles that I wanted to cover. Well, if something occurs to me, we can always revisit. Okay, and then, yes, Ifyani. Uh-oh. Ifyani, you had frozen up, so we didn't actually catch what you said.
Okay, yeah, I'm still having a little problem on how to cite the work I'm doing is based on Hello?
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear
I was
you.
just trying to. I was asking about how to cite. Just trying to find out how to cite interviews when you conduct interviews to develop your work. How do you cite the interviews? Just like in my work that is mainly based on interviews from people. Then how are you going to cite the interviews you have done?
Okay, so what you can do is, again, go to the Purdue OWL website and then go to MLA Works Cited, other common sources. And then if you scroll down, so you have personal interviews, published interviews, it's all there. And it's very simple. The name of the person you interviewed, last name, comma, first name, personal interview, and the date.
Okay.
And then if it's a published interview, then then again, online only published interview. So they have all of these they have all the rules, right? So you just need to go, and I went to MLA Works Cited, other common sources. Okay, so Nadia, do you have any questions?
No, I think that I got everything covered here.
Okay, good.
Yeah, this actually helped a lot.
And remember, whenever you have questions, you just reach out. Okay, this is something that I emphasize over and over again. You're not required to do this by yourself. You can ask for help and you can collaborate. And remember, when I send in an article for publication, after it has been evaluated in terms of the argument that I'm making and the research that I've done, before it gets published, they have a person who goes through all the entire article, copy editing it, and also checking the citations and making sure, because once they have published it, it's also the reputation of the journal. And so it's okay, just reach out and say, hey, can you help me with this citation, or can you take a look at this and let me know if this is okay. I also wanted to emphasize, you don't just quote and cite quotations. If you're using an idea from a source, you cite that idea as well, right? Because the idea, like the exact words, is also part of that author's intellectual property. And then, Carla, because you will cite, you will be using a lot of sources like Instagram accounts and maybe a website that doesn't have a designated author or a director or project director or something like that. Again, all you need to do is go to electronic sources, web publications, and then they have like how to cite a website without an author, right? An email, how to cite an email, a listserv, discussion group, or blog posting, even a tweet. So they have all these, a YouTube video, a comment on a website or on an article.
I was wondering, like, you know how many I'm going to use the accommodation letters? Like, if I need to cite them as well? Because I didn't write those letters. Like, somebody else. The doctors wrote the letters. I don't know. I'm just trying not to get in trouble.
No, you're absolutely right. So again, what we can do is we can go to MLA Works Cited and see other common sources, published interviews, speeches, lectures, questions and answer sessions, published conference proceedings, photograph, song or album, films or movies, podcasts, digital files,
Wouldn't it be under PDFs? I mean,
you could just cite it as a digital file. That would be okay. But I'm just looking to see if they have MLA additional resources. Hold on. MLA Works Cited. See, sometimes if I don't find it here, I will even let's close this up. How to cite government document. Government and legal documents. Where you found it, right? So like microfiche. So we'll combine it. So all it's saying is name the organization that produced the document, then put the name of the document. If it has a volume number, issue number, you put that information. And then what you do is here, because you have it, you didn't get it from a website, you have a PDF file of it, you would go back and use this format, which is PDF. Right.
Okay, but I'm what I'm asking is the actual, like, so my doctors wrote like accommodation letters. Like like a letter. It's a letter. It's in PDF. I mean,
I personal letters in MLA. Personal communication.
Okay. Would it be personal communication? Because I actually just got one of my accommodation letters from the DRC, the one I was
right, but it was given to you. So it
Oh,
becomes a part of your personal communication.
okay. Yeah, because they gave it to me certified mail because of HIPAA. So I'm wondering if that was
right. So
I mean, I understand what you're saying, but I'm just kind of wondering if there's like another law or something.
right. No. So see, even here MLA citing primary sources. So entire website, articles and essays, cartoons and illustrations, films, government publications, manuscripts, maps and charts, newspapers, oral history news, photographs, sound recordings. So yeah, with letters, I would just go with personal communication. Author's last name, author's first name, letter to the author, date of letter. Okay. So all good questions, right? And this is actually what today's readings are talking about, which is if you think of the traditional kind of humanities scholarship before digital technologies created library databases and searchable databases and online databases and online repositories, you would read articles in print, and then there was and most of your sources were in print unless there were some archival materials, and then they were usually curated in an archive, and so you would go, but you would still read them in print. And so you cited sources, and usually you only dealt with print, right? Now, somebody might be citing letters by a famous author, but that was part of that author's collection or a personal collection, and you would cite it that way. But now you might be citing a blog or a tweet or a TikTok video, and that is why what the articles, like the readings for this week, what they want you to think about is two things. One is exactly, Carla, what you're having to do, which is ask these questions. How do I cite this? I want to make sure that I'm citing it correctly. It's a letter, but it's not a government document. I mean, it is a government document, but at the same time, it's a letter that was addressed to me, which I can show to other people. So you're thinking along those lines. And if you remember, you could have a TikTok video that you might be citing, or you might be citing a comment on a TikTok video. And so those kinds of things. Because again, even 20, 30 years ago, most departments would have scoffed at the idea of anybody doing cultural research on TikTok videos. Yet, what like Flanders and Flanders and also the author of the other piece, what's his name? Should have pulled up all the. Give me just a second. I'm pulling up the source. Alex Reed. What Alex Reed? So what he's saying is the scope of our research has changed, and the impact of digital technologies, particularly if you're doing cultural studies, social media, tablets, cell phones have such an impact on the lives of people outside of academia, the culture of the community. How can we ignore that? And if we are not going to ignore that, we need to be able to study that. And when you're doing a study on the impact of certain kinds of TikTok videos or TikTok threads, or with global political issues, people tweeting about them. I guess now it's called X, so I don't know Xing about them. But
it's still tweeting. It's still tweeting.
It's still tweeting, yes, right. But the point is, people. So you have to be able to, and people have studied hashtags, like a certain hashtag movement. Twitter played a huge role in the Arab Spring uprisings. Twitter played a huge role in the hashtag #MeToo movement, and these were sociocultural movements, and there's scholarship on that, right? So you need to think about not only the kinds of projects that you're developing, but also the kinds of sources you're going to use. And so your conception of the scope of a project, the modality of a project, the nature of a project, as well as your source materials, needs to change. But also, along with all of these things changing, your conception of your methodology has to also change. not only the methodology of how you are going to do your research, how you're going to incorporate that research, but also how you're going to present that research. Because today, when you are designing that website, Carla, because see, we're still talking about citing sources for your digital project proposal, which is still very much like an academic paper, right? It's a short paper, but it's still very much like an academic paper. But when you create the website, you may embed a short video of you with Lupe explaining and talking about your personal, and that's absolutely fine. And then if you bring in sources just the way we do, you would simply refer to a source. You would say, if you're interested, check out this website, or such and such book written by, gives lots of very good information. And so that's also a form of citing, right? And so it makes us, now the other point that they're making is that it also makes you reflect on the question of methodology itself in the humanities, right? Because traditional humanities scholarship can be very rigid about methodologies. And their argument is that digital humanities, and this is the defining factor about digital humanities, it's not about just doing humanities work in the digital space, but because of the implementation of digital tools, which makes you rethink your modality, it makes you rethink your source materials, it also makes you reflect on the methodology of humanities, the way you are doing your research and the way you conceive of the humanities. And that's why Flanders calls it a productive unease. And so absolutely, I'm trying to give you an answer, Carla, because I want you to, when I can, I'll give you an answer. But there will be times when you'll go, yeah, I'm kind of not clear. I mean, I'm doing the best I can, and you're breaking ground, right? But yes, like the question, if it's a letter that's addressed to me, and most of the time, you're not sharing that letter, but you are, because you want to have an impact on other people, saying, look, here's the process I had to go through. I had to get this letter. I had to do this. So there is this kind of product. And then, the productive unease is you going, that conversation that you had with the person who trained Lupe, and that person saying, share this, but don't share that. That's the productive unease that Flanders is talking about. Does that make sense? Yeah. Sarita, you look like you have something to say. You have a crinkle.
Yeah, so the thing that I'm sort of kind of reflecting on now that we're kind of having this conversation, and with the readings from today, there's this sort of, I guess, again, this is less of a question and more just like a reflection. Like, I feel like I'm finally getting to a point where I think I'm sort of understanding a little bit more, I guess, the sort of ecosystem that surrounds digital humanities. I think there's this very like weird part of myself that's, I guess, trying really hard to categorize what is truly DH and then what falls underneath, which is sort of like being, brought up in some of the readings, which is again, the idea of only, wanting to use rhetoric or like sort of concrete ideas like that are like, crucial to, I guess, English departments and things as a whole. I guess there's a very like, I'm sort of battling with myself on like what is legitimate and what sort of is experimental and what kind of fits under that blanket. So it's kind of interesting to reflect on, what I've written before and kind of my confusion on what counts as digital humanities and what sort of, and I guess it's just interesting to note the progress as far as like, the different, I always have a minute where I take a second to like pick my words carefully, but like again, there's just like a sort of contrast. That's what I'm looking for. Like this thing that I'm trying to, I guess, reconcile within my own understanding of like two things can coexist. Again, that kind of like, stuffy academic rhetoric, the kind of, formal archival work that I'm thinking of mixed in with, again, the sort of like new technologies like citing TikToks, things like that, sort of deep dives into that section of it. It's a whole, that's sort of where I'm at with it, is that I'm kind of unraveling like, I've had some really weird ideas of what constitutes DH this whole time that I feel like now that we're getting more into the readings, I'm fully kind of integrating multiple avenues, if that makes sense. Sorry.
No, it makes perfect sense. In fact, Sarita, what you just did was you encapsulated how this class is different from my other classes where we have had digital projects. Because when it's just one module in a class, we've done digital projects, we've thought a little bit about digital humanities, but we haven't had time to reflect on digital humanities the way we are doing in this class. And so progressively, as you are working on your digital project, and that will have its own trajectory, but through the readings, you're also saying, look, I'm kind of grappling with these questions. And keep in mind that a lot of our understanding of humanities research and what counts and what doesn't count is so deeply entrenched because there is still a structure, and we've come through that structure. And now as we become, we get introduced to new possibilities, we have to do a little bit of unraveling, right? And like, you have an arts degree.
Well, a minor. Yeah.
An arts minor.
Yeah.
Right.
But
and also,
yeah.
But I mean, there was a struggle to get digital or graphic design accepted as artwork because it was considered cheating or lazy.
That idea still exists in very highbrow sort of art spaces. Kind of the reason why I never went to like an art program specifically.
Right.
There's just a lot of that kind of like, elitism as far as like what constitutes actual, fine arts versus like, again, using art as a vehicle for more, I guess, less than worthy pursuits, like, graphic design for like a big company to advertise and stuff like that. So, it's interesting to kind of see that prevalent within these sort of like fields as well.
But also keep in mind, like, some of the distinctions that are made are usually made between art in the digital format and art as we understand it, or the traditional conception of art is you are creating something with your hands, or sort of painting or ceramics or clay, or working with clay or sculpting. And then what these authors are cautioning us against understanding as digital humanities is the digitizing of artwork, right? So you take a picture and you would digitize it, and they'd say that in itself is not digital humanities. It's when you take those digital images or the digitized version of the artwork and you do some kind of analysis, or you think, or so that's when it gets into the area of digital humanities. Okay, but with the evolution of technology, now you don't just take a picture of a ceramic piece and digitize it. Part of the devolution was you took multiple pictures so that you could see it from multiple angles. Then you had like this sort of 360 degree where you could kind of turn around and see it. But now you can do a scan where you see it in 3D, as in, like they did a CAT scan of this. They do CAT scans of sculptures or statues, bronze statues, and then they want to see what's inside. And I saw this article where there was they found that there was a mummy and on that mummy they created a sort of bronze or gold sculpt, like a statue, or I don't know what you would call it, a sculpture. And when they did a CAT scan, they actually could see the bones of the mummified monk inside, but they also found scrolls that they didn't know were inside because you would have to break it up. But my point is, so now you're getting into this sort of incredible digital image, but then with 3D software, you can create artworks in 3 dimensions, 4 dimensions, so 3 dimensions. And that the skill that is required there, your digital skill and your artistic skill, how is that any different from producing a 3-dimensional artwork with clay? I mean, it is different, but in terms of artistry, qualitatively, so it's becoming more and more difficult now, right? Because you can then 3D print the thing that you've created. I think, Sarita, I can see that you have something else that's at the tip of your tongue, so go ahead.
It's a little bit less on that, because now automatically what I'm thinking of is like, yeah, it's actually, I think maybe about 5 or 6 years ago, maybe probably like a decade at this point, I kind of noticed that overall like trend of like, there's people who make actual 3D models as a method of like art, just kind of like, using software just to do that specifically. So they'll make like, character creations or sort of like these big on that. But I'm also thinking, again, just sort of overall what might constitute like a digital humanities project within the arts like that. I don't know if, and there's like a huge rise of these things during like lockdown. If anyone's familiar with some of the virtual like Met Gallery stuff and how it's interactive, you can like, it's got like archived pieces of artwork that have like, again, multiple angles, sort of like, I guess, digitizing the museum experience. And I think that's also a really interesting avenue that I'm like, just something anecdotally is that I remembered that in the middle of the conversation, just sort of like, again, that was a teaching tool that I used pretty regularly when I was doing art classes K through 12. So
absolutely. And we haven't even like mentioned VR headsets, which are now, you can buy one for your individual use. They're reasonably cheap, reasonably easy to set up. So this is what I was talking about. CT scan reveals mummified monk inside ancient Buddha statue, 1,000-year-old Buddha statue. And then when they did the CT scan, they could see that it wasn't just a statue. There was actually a mummified monk, and there were scrolls inside. So,
like scrolls or screws, like scrolls, like writings.
Yeah, that along with it. Now, I think they find a way to. There you go. The monk's organs had been removed and replaced with scraps of paper printed with the ancient Chinese characters. So essentially, they were scraps of paper. But I thought I read maybe that was a different statue, but that there were also scrolls there, ancient Chinese Buddhist scrolls. But my point is, now that's digital humanities, because your understanding of that statue is completely transformed. And now your analysis is like, okay, who is that monk? What time period? Why was the monk made into a statue? Right. Why were the internal organs replaced with those scraps of paper? And are those scraps of paper then like, do they have some value? Otherwise, they could have just, put in anything else. Anyway, so that's so that's what they're sort of grappling with. And I'm so glad, Sarita, that it's making you think about some of the assumptions that what we can now call traditional humanities research work with. works with. Anyway, so I'm not going to keep you unless there are any more, like any additional questions. Nadia?
I've got nothing right now.
Oh.
I don't.
Okay. Okay. I also want to say that I want to remind you that from this point onwards, other than the grant writing and the digital project review, the main project, right? Just keep working one-on-one with me whenever you need to make an appointment and show me what you're working on. And in the next couple of days, I'm actually going through your proposals right now. I'm going to create, when required, I'm going to create your website either on WordPress or Omeka and email it to you. And if you're not working with that, like if you're creating a podcast, or then that shouldn't be an issue. If you feel like you need to use some kind of software and it costs money, reach out to me and I'll reach out to Dr. Emily Edwards, or you can reach out to Dr. Emily Edwards yourself. Reach out to Dr. Edwards and ask for alternatives, because I did that. I reached out to her just a few weeks ago and I said, I saw this thing and it was really, really interesting. Do you know of softwares, tools that kind of mimic that? And she gave me 5 different options. Okay, so that's the process. Yeah, Nadia.
Okay, you just reminded me. So you said that you're gonna be like creating the website, like giving us like the WordPress and everything. How will we be able to? Will you give us like access to it so we'll be able to like make our own changes and everything?
Yeah, so if you've been to WordPress.com and you've played around with it, and so you know that you have access to the free version, and then you have some tools available, some templates for free. When I create the WordPress website for you, it's like it's the paid version. So when I give it to you, what I'll do is I'll create a password for you, and that will give you access to the back end. That is, it'll give you access to creating the website. And from there, you can choose any template you want and all the tools that you want to incorporate. Okay. And remember, it's not live, and it is hosted. For the time being, it's not hosted by the university. It's hosted under Reclaim Hosting by me. But when you are ready to take it live, you can create your own Reclaim Hosting account, buy a domain, and transfer all your information, and then you'll have ownership. Yes, Carl.
Okay. So I have 2 questions. The first question would be, so I want to make my documents or my website accessible because I listen to everything audio. So I'm actually in the process of like converting my like my letters that are digital already from my Google Docs to Word. Should I convert it PDF or should I convert it Word? Like, which one do you suggest? Does it make a difference on how I'm going to upload it to the website?
I think if you convert Word documents to PDF, their text is still recognizable. And so in terms of accessibility, whatever software the person is using will be able to read it. It's only when you take a picture of a page and you turn it into a PDF file, the text is not, the PDF doesn't recognize it as text. It recognizes it as an image.
Yes,
right?
yes.
Does that make sense? So if you are actually converting it into a Word file and then into a PDF, then the text will be recognized.
Okay, that's good, because I didn't know if I needed, like, how I needed to convert it or how. So that's
now there is another alternative way. if you have a PDF file where you took a picture of look at an image of a document, if you export it, then Microsoft Adobe does its best to recognize the script, and there may be errors, so you have to go through the document and fix those, but it will convert it into script, recognizable script.
Yeah, so I do have the Adobe. That's how I convert my PDFs. Like all the readings that you gave me that I get from PDFs, I convert them, I export them to the Word document. But what I'm doing is I'm downloading it into the Adobe. I'm trying to export it out to PDF. To Word documents, but sometimes it's not letting me. But then when it's the Word document, unless I put it like I give it the command to print it, it doesn't look like a actual file. It just looks like a whole lot of mess. So I'm not really sure what. I think I'll just do both and just figure it out.
And again, with these are good questions. And so usually with a question like that, what I'll do is I'll just go improving accessibility on WordPress. Right. So there may be, like on WordPress, you can add, what's the word that I'm looking for? Plugins. You can add plugins. And so there may be a plugin so 13 ways to improve your WordPress website's accessibility. Right. And so, yeah, I would kind of, it's a good question. And see, even WordPress has like a section devoted to accessibility. Accessibility guidelines, related guides. So it's a good thing to explore, Carla. And again, you may not be able to do everything in the month and a half that's left, but the fact that you're addressing some of these issues and making your website accessible means you're doing more than some other projects. Okay.
Thank you. The second question I have is like when I cite like the experiments, like there is one experiment that I want to cite.
Oops. I think Carla had some internet issues, so she'll be logging back in. But in the meanwhile, Sarita, what question did you have?
Sorry to kind of take over by default, but the thing that I was sort of wondering on, because I know, these projects aren't going to be fully, we're not going to be able to bring them to full fruition in the time that's left, but sort of, and, the project subject matter that I'm sort of focusing on, I would like to develop into a very mature project later on. But the thing that I'm wondering right now is, so I've sort of been floating the idea with, because my partner is, finishing he's a PhD candidate up at Catholic University of America in DC, but he's got, a decent connection of people who work in, the archives at that university, but also like, again, people like his peers that he's willing to put me in connection with who have, background in DH, the sort of like, anything related to the subject. Would there be anything that we need to do as far as like, bringing in collaboration? I know you did say, using Emily Edwards as one sort of like, I guess, source. But again, was there anything you'd want us to do as far as like, if we bring in some type of collaboration, like on the subject of citation and sort of giving credit there?
Yeah, absolutely. If you want to actually not only citation, but if you can get people to collaborate with you to help you develop aspects of the website, you're welcome to. The only reason why I didn't make it a requirement and I said like, that may be a reason why you have the scope narrowed down is because you don't have that much, like this is a class and you have like a couple of months. And so, but if there is somebody who's willing to collaborate with you and you bring them in, that's fine. And again, make sure that you recognize the work that because remember, that's again, one of the things that was addressed in one of the articles that we read today, which is we need to also think about collaborations, because usually in humanities scholarship, it's two scholars collaborating. And then the people who perhaps helped you with the digital tools, you simply thought of them as people providing you a service.
Okay.
But that's not the case, because often the people who are helping you with the digital tools are also helping you re-envision the methodology of your humanities research. And so they are collaborators. So you figure out how you want to give them credit.
Okay, yeah, that's just again sort of what I was thinking, because I've been, kind of corresponding a little bit with certain people from that side of things, like that department. One of my partner's friends is like very experienced with like ArcGIS, so that's sort of like something I'm trying to focus on, I guess, and incorporate, however I can, and it's the initial stages, but then later on down the line. Okay, alrighty, that sums it up.
Carla, yes, your second question. Everything was working so well up until this point, and now I think the internet's giving everybody trouble. No worries. I think Carla might get logged out again because if her computer's frozen up. So, yes. So you know what? I'm going to email her and I'll let her know that, she can just email me her question and we can talk about that. Might be a good time to kind of end the session here. You will have questions, Ifeanyi, Nadia, and Sarita. And everyone else who's not logged on right now, email me, set up meetings. Carla, I just wanted to say, I can see that you're having issues with the internet. If you get logged out, don't worry. You can email the question to me or set up an appointment, but give it another shot.
Oh, so the question was that if I cite a journal, like an experiment journal, like, am I allowed to put the journal article on the website, or is that even legal? Like, since it's they're usually found in databases.
That's a good question. There's an issue. I think you can include excerpts from the journal. I wouldn't, and you can provide a link to where the article is available.
Okay.
But I wouldn't share the whole article unless and actually it may be an open access source, in which case you can just simply link it and people, but if it's not an open access source, I would share excerpts. I wouldn't necessarily, and you could write up the argument of the, kind of do a paraphrase and so provide an annotation or something, and then say, and even kind of clarify that this journal is behind a paywall.
Okay. Glad I was able to ask the whole question. Just took 3 times.
All right. So I think this was a good session. Remember, next week we have the digital project review presentations, right? No? Hang on. No. Sorry if I scared you. Next week we have writing grants. And then the following week. So you have plenty of time. You have 2 weeks to work on that. Next week we have writing grants. Okay.
I've already read. I'm like,
No.
okay, bye.
All right. Take care, everyone. Bye, Ifeanyi.
Bye.